arguing with the president of Fox because he basically said like he's like there's no story here, and I'm like, it's about character development. It doesn't need a story.
He did. I felt my insides dying a little.
I'm sure you were glad you brought me along.
And that's why I brought you to so many meetings after.
Hey.
Which were none.
Yes. So yeah, that was why nothing ever happened at Fox. And then
I like that we're telling stories of why it hasn't worked out.
well, again, then I wanted to go. I don't know if you were allowed to go into what happened after.
Oh, I'll do it.
All right.
What are they gonna do? Take my birthday away? All right. So if you never heard the story of what Lenore was optioned to be made into a 2-hour feature, they were gonna give this thing like a $60 million budget. I was already planning what private jet I was gonna buy, who I was gonna have killed, you know, all the cool stuff you do when you get money. So basically though, during the meeting, they're like, okay, we love what you've come up with. The character's amazing. We love your quirky timing. And I'm like, you never want to hear that you have quirky timing, but it felt like it went great. And then they go, so we love everything about it. We're gonna have these two people write it. Like, that had never read the book before. They have a different sense of humor. It was Caroline Thompson who wrote Nightmare Before Christmas as Edward Scissorhands. Did you want to come up? And Larry Wilson who wrote Beetlejuice and The Addams Family.
So it seems like it's like, you know, some good people to get in.
Well, I can see what they're doing. They're like, it's kind of Tim Burton-y. Let's get the Tim Burton people. But,
and Danny Elfman had agreed to do the
yeah,
music.
and they did at one point talk about trying to get Burton to direct it, which I was out, and people would be bummed to hear it, but I was totally against. Because I didn't want to, I put so much of my life into this character. If Tim Burton directed it, it would have been released as, from the mind of Tim Burton comes Lenore.
Tim Burton's Lenore.
Yeah, so I was like, not so much. But so 6 months go by, and the script shows up at my door, and I poured myself a glass of wine, and I was literally in my jammies, which was entertaining for the FedEx guy. I brought him in.
I used the jelly thing.
Yes. So, went upstairs, got all nestled in my bed, and started reading the script, you know, drank my wine. And I'm like, okay. And you gotta keep in mind, the first thing I said is, this cannot be a musical. I hate that every cartoon needs to be musical. I'm against it. So, on page 3, Lenore breaks out into song and dance. Keep in mind, Lenore's alive because she doesn't know she's dead. That's her lore. She breaks out into a song called It's Fun to Be Dead.
And did she have a little a sidekick?
Oh yeah, it was a worm that came out of her head and talked, which ended up showing up in Corpse Bride later on. Yeah, alright. But you totally interrupted me, now I can't think.
I'm sorry. You gave back story notes, I think.
Well, first I was reading that, It's Fun to Be Dead. Apparently they gave Lenore magical powers, because at one point they're like, yeah, well, she causes, accidents and deaths accidentally, right? I'm like, yeah. In the script, she points at a plane, and it crashes. I was like, okay, can you explain that to me? They're like, it's funny. I'm all, but what powers? I'm all, okay, maybe she's wearing one of those big candy rings, and she's like, and then it catches the sun, and then you cut to the cockpit of the pilot, like, and then the plane, you're like, no, that's not necessary.
It's unrealistic.
Yeah, no, that would never happen. So, by like halfway through the script, I had gone through the wine really quickly. I was just doing crack, whatever. It was just like cutting myself. It was so bad. It was just so bad. And they're talented writers. They just didn't get it. It was. They made it. What's that obscure tale with the glass slipper and the... Oh, Cinderella. So they made it like Cinderella, but they even gave Lenore a sister named Raven. right? So so basically, what happens if you've never been in one of these situations where you're thrown to the Hollywood sharks, they totally set you up. And what happens is basically 2 days after I read the script, and I'm on the phone with my agent, he's like, "So what'd you think?" I'm all, I cried. And like a little girl, I cried because all my dreams were just dashed upon the rocks of life. So he's like, "Well, see what you think, if you could kind of change your mind about it, because we have a meeting with everybody tomorrow." So I had to go to, this was still when I was at Universal, I had to go into a room where I walked in, and it's like very devil's advocate. Like a long table with all the guys sitting at these like ornate chairs with this giant evil painting behind them. Seriously, it was cool.